Well, week 15 of the 2024 NFL season is in the books, and we know the entire AFC playoff picture. I mean, we don't know the seeding or anything, but seven teams have a likelihood over 90% of making the AFC playoffs per ESPN's Football Power Index. That's the first time that has happened by week 15 in the ESPN FPI era since 2008, according to analytics writer Seth Walder. And remember, week 15 used to be the third to last week. We still have 3 weeks of AFC football left, and it's basically all for seeding. Better enjoy this NFC West divisional race while you can. It's pretty much the only suspense remaining. Every Tuesday, I'll spin the previous week of NFL games forward, looking at what the biggest storylines mean and what comes next. We'll take a first look at the consequences of Monday Night Football, break down a major trend or two, and highlight some key individual players and plays. There will be film. There will be stats, a whole section of them. And there will be fun. This week, we dive deep on how Vikings coach Kevin O'Connell has brought this Minnesota team all the way to the playoffs with Sam Darnold under center. Is he the new Sean McVay as the NFL's trendy offensive mastermind and quarterback guru? Are we somehow still underappreciating what he has done this season? Plus, we dissect the Lions' chances of overcoming their slew of injuries and still winning the Super Bowl, break down the Defensive Player of the Year race, and shine some light on the brilliance of Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. Let's jump in. The Los Angeles Rams kicked off Week 15 of the NFL season with a Thursday night win over the San Francisco 49ers. On Sunday, Baltimore Ravens quarterback Lamar Jackson had an impressive 5-touchdown performance, and wide receiver Devontae Adams enjoyed his best game yet for the New York Jets, grabbing 9 receptions for 198 yards. Kansas City Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes was removed in the fourth quarter of the victory against the Cleveland Browns with an ankle injury. Later, the Buffalo Bills handed the Detroit Lions their second loss of the season, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers blew out the Los Angeles Chargers, and the Philadelphia Eagles won the Pennsylvania State Championship. On Monday night, the Minnesota Vikings won their 7th straight by handing the Chicago Bears their 8th consecutive defeat. The Atlanta Falcons also narrowly defeated the Las Vegas Raiders. Can the Falcons continue to win by shifting their offensive strategy away from Kirk Cousins? The short answer is probably not, even if Bijan Robinson has emerged as one of the best running backs in football. Cousins on Monday snapped his 4-game streak without a touchdown pass via a 30-yarder to wide receiver Drake London, but had another interception, giving him 9 picks over the past 5 games. Cousins went 11 of 17 passing, with the Falcons running the ball more than 30 times. Atlanta didn't pay Cousins $100 million guaranteed to hide him. Eye-popping stat: Cousins didn't throw on first down once in the first half, the only occurrence of that happening in his career. The Falcons were clearly trying to feature the running game due to Cousins' struggles. It worked. Cousins threw on first down to start the second half, and it was an interception. Most surprising performance: outside linebacker D'Angelo Malone is known mostly for being one of the Falcons' best players on special teams. He has earned more time on defense as an edge with the team needing fresh pass rushers. On Monday, Malone had 2 sacks, the first multiple sack game of his 3-year career. Are the Raiders playing with house money down the stretch? In a word, yes. Injuries have decimated the Raiders this season, and with 3 games left to play, Las Vegas is in line for a top 2 draft pick. The Raiders have dropped 10 straight, their longest in-season losing streak since they opened the 2014 season 0-10. With a relative dearth of talent on the roster, they simply need to keep playing with effort. After all, players also are auditioning for next season. That goes against the franchise mantra of just win, baby. But sometimes it's simply not in the cards. Early prediction for next week: an ultra-conservative offensive game plan showed little or no trust in third-string quarterback Desmond Ridder, who joined the team on October 22nd in a what-do-they-have-to-lose game versus Atlanta. So why not throw undrafted rookie QB Carter Bradley, who has been in Las Vegas since April, out there against the Jaguars just to see what he has? Especially if Aiden O'Connell's bone bruise on his left knee keeps him out again. Most surprising performance: 3 sacks by a defensive front missing 3-time Pro Bowl edge rusher Max Crosby. Undrafted rookie defensive tackle Jonah Lalu registered his first career sack, while fellow DT Adam Butler tallied 1 to give him 3.5 sacks for the campaign, and defensive end Tyree Wilson, last year's first-round pick, got his 4th of 2024. What does this victory mean for the Vikings? Actually, it means a lot. It pulled the Vikings to a statistical tie with both the Detroit Lions. 12-2, and the Philadelphia Eagles, 12-2. It means the Vikes will secure the NFC North crown if they win their final 3 games, and it keeps them very much in the running for the number 1 overall seed in the conference. If Minnesota wins out to finish 15-2, and the Eagles do as well, the tiebreaker will come down to strength of victory between the two, which can be tabulated until all games have been played. What we learned about the QB today: Sam Darnold had one of his least accurate games of the season, finishing with 16 incompletions, his second most in 2024. ESPN Research credited him with 6 off-target throws, tied for his second most this campaign. Eye-popping stat: according to NFL Next Gen Stats, Justin Jefferson was more open on his first quarter touchdown than he had been on any of the previous 20 touchdowns he has scored on throws into the end zone. Jefferson had 4 yards of separation from the nearest Bears defender on the 7-yard catch. In some respects, Chicago didn't convert a third down until 14:35 remained in the fourth quarter when Caleb Williams completed a 20-yard pass to Keenan Allen. The Bears were 1 of 12 on third down for the second time this season. Running back DeAndre Swift was so ineffective early, including getting stuffed twice on fourth and one in the first half, that the Bears called on wide receiver DJ Moore out of the backfield. Most surprising performance: the Bears entered Week 15 with 4 pass interference penalties on the season, which was tied for the third fewest in the league. They were flagged for it twice in Minnesota, with both penalties eventually leading to touchdowns. Eye-popping stat: Williams' average depth of target on 9 pass attempts in the first half was 0.1 yards, but he averaged 10.0 yards in the second half. He didn't attempt a pass with at least 10 air yards in the first half and attempted 10 such throws in the second half. Can the Packers run the table? After winning in Seattle, the Packers have 1 road game remaining, at Minnesota in Week 17. The Vikings already won at Lambeau Field in Week 4, and as of Sunday night, they had a 2-game lead on the Packers in the loss column. The other 2 games are against the Saints, 5-9, and Bears, 4-9. If Green Bay wins out, it will carry a 4-game winning streak into the playoffs. Describe the game in 2 words: fast start. As much as the offense struggled in the second half, it's a good thing the Packers started fast. Thanks largely to Josh Jacobs, they scored touchdowns on their first 2 possessions on the way to a 14-0 lead. The Packers ran 18 plays on those 2 drives combined, and Jacobs got the ball on 11 of them, including 9 times in the 10-play opening drive. Most surprising performance: CB Carrington Valentine did not have an interception in his first 28 NFL games before Sunday. He nearly made it 29 when he dropped a potential pick on a 2nd-and-goal play in the second quarter. But he made up for it quickly. On the very next play, Valentine picked off Geno Smith in the end zone. Valentine was in the lineup in place of the injured Jair Alexander knee. Are the Seahawks a playoff team even with a healthy Geno Smith? Their playoff hopes suffered a significant blow with the loss, which dropped them into a tie for first place in the NFC West with the Rams. The Rams have a head-to-head win over Seattle and the easier remaining schedule. A wildcard berth would be no bargain, as Washington, currently sitting in the 3rd and final spot, is a game ahead and has 2 more conference wins for tie-breaking purposes. But getting into the playoffs would be an even taller order if Smith's right knee injury forces Sam Howell into extended action. Smith went down in the 3rd quarter and didn't return, and Howell struggled. Most surprising performance: it wasn't a total shock that the Seahawks' offensive line struggled, allowing 7 sacks and 12 QB hits. That unit is still overmatched talent-wise and lost starting center Olu Oluwatimi to a knee injury in the first half. But it was also coming off its best performance of the season: 0 sacks, 2 hits, and was facing a Packers defense that ranks near the bottom of the NFL in pressure rate and pass rush win rate. What we learned about the QB on Sunday: Smith hasn't kicked his bad habit of forcing throws in the red zone. He has been very good when he takes care of the ball, which he did the previous 2 games, but not against Green Bay before his injury. The interception he threw off his back foot under heavy pressure marked his 4th pick in the red zone this season, most in the NFL, and 4th on a throw into the end zone, tied for most in the NFL. Smith, 15 of 19, 149 yards, no TDs, now has 13 interceptions this season compared with 14 touchdown passes. Can the Bills keep winning these track meets? In short, yes. There is no denying that their defense is a concern, allowing 35-plus points and 450-plus yards in consecutive games. The unit is dealing with injuries, including 3 starting defensive backs missing the game. The offense is setting records left and right. Quarterback Josh Allen extended his own record with his sixth career game of multiple passing touchdowns and multiple rushing touchdowns. The Bills are doing it even without key players being heavily involved, as receiver Amari Cooper had 0 targets Sunday. Offensive coordinator Joe Brady is rolling with Allen, and that will keep the Bills in any game. Most surprising performance: the run defense. The Bills came in allowing 4.7 yards per rush, 26. Against the Lions, that number was 3.2. Detroit abandoned the rush early to catch up to Buffalo through the air. Limiting the Lions to 48 yards on the ground is a positive after allowing 120 plus in 4 of their past 5 games. Eye-popping stat: the win marked the Bills' 8th straight game with 30 plus points, which ties the longest such streak in a single season in NFL history. Also done by the 2000 Rams, 2007 Patriots, 2010 Patriots, and 2013 Broncos. The game also marked a season high in yards, 559. Is the loss to the Bills reason to be concerned going forward? Yes and no. With this potentially serving as a Super Bowl preview, many of Detroit's holes were certainly exposed by Buffalo in allowing 48 points at home. No team has ever allowed 45 points or more in a home game and gone on to win the Super Bowl, per ESPN research. But the Lions had won 11 straight games entering this matchup, so they shouldn't enter panic mode. And you can't ignore the fact that Detroit's defense continued to take some more big hits with defensive tackle Alan McNeil, knee, cornerback Khalil Dorsey, ankle, and cornerback Carlton Davis III, jaw, all being ruled out versus the Bills. Biggest hole in the game plan: defending quarterback Josh Allen. In the opening quarter, he made a statement with 2 rushing touchdowns, handing Detroit its biggest first quarter deficit, 14 points, all season. He continued to pick the Lions apart with his legs and through the air. Buffalo scored a touchdown on its first 3 drives, taking command early and never looking back. Most surprising performance: offensive tackle Dan Skipper. The Lions' big man displayed his receiving skills by catching a 9-yard touchdown pass from quarterback Jared Goff with 3:01 remaining in the second quarter. Skipper became the 3rd offensive lineman in franchise history to score a receiving touchdown, joining Taylor Decker and Scott Conover. How close are the Broncos to being a playoff team? It will not be framed and hung in the Louvre, but the Broncos defeated a Colts team chasing them for a wild card spot, while the Chargers and Dolphins lost in other games. The super tight affair turned into a lopsided win after the Broncos scored 3 fourth-quarter touchdowns. They can thank Marvin Mims Jr. for a 60-yard punt return and linebacker Nick Bonitto, who scored his second TD of the season a little more than a minute later. Now, the Broncos are in the number 6 position in the AFC. Biggest hole in the game plan: on a day when winds gusted between 20 and 30 miles per hour, the Broncos chose to air the ball out. Their running backs had 8 carries for 15 yards in the first half and had 10 carries combined midway through the third quarter. The Broncos got an all-important win, but they haven't established a consistent run-pass balance. What we learn about the QB on Sunday: Bo Nix has shown remarkable maturity throughout the season, but he is making the typical rookie mistake of messing up early. That happened again Sunday, as he threw an interception in the first quarter and 2 more in the second half. He ended up with 3 touchdown passes in a 24-33, 130-yard performance. How much damage did the Colts do to their playoff hopes? The Colts were playing their biggest game of the season and had the luxury of playing the team with whom they are competing with for the final AFC playoff spot. Their remaining slate pits them against favorable opponents: the Titans, Giants, and Jaguars. But they now are 2 games behind the Chargers for the number 7 playoff spot, even after the Chargers lost Sunday, and cannot catch the Texans in the AFC South. The Colts also no longer have the head-to-head tiebreaker with the Broncos. Describe the game in 2 words: missed opportunities. The Colts had multiple chances to take control, while Denver was struggling with turnovers. But their best opportunity was blown when running back Jonathan Taylor let go of the ball before he crossed the goal line on a 41-yard run early in the third quarter. The Broncos scored the final 24 points of the game after that mistake. Biggest hole in the game plan: Coach Shane Steichen's bad double pass play call. The Colts, trailing 17-13 with 12:29 left and in Denver territory, dialed up a cutesy trick play that backfired. Quarterback Anthony Richardson threw a backward pass to wide receiver Adonai Mitchell, who attempted to throw another lateral back to the quarterback. Broncos linebacker Nick Bonitto stepped in front of Richardson to snatch the ball before running 50 yards for a touchdown. Should we consider the Bucs as a legitimate NFC contenders? Yes. You can put this one up there with those early season upsets over the Lions and Eagles, the NFC's top two seeds. The Bucks scored 27 unanswered points against the Chargers, and their 40 points were the most allowed by the Chargers' top-ranked defense all season. This marks 4 straight victories, and none of their future opponents have a winning record. But turnovers continue to be an issue, with 7 over the past 3 games. Eye-popping stat, wide receiver Mike Evans recorded his 23rd career game with multiple receiving touchdowns. 2, the 5th most by a player with a single team in NFL history. He's behind only Hall of Fame company in Chris Carter, 25, Don Hutson, 28, Marvin Harrison, 29, and Jerry Rice, 49. Most surprising performance, without their top 3 safeties in All-Pro Antoine Winfield Jr., knee, Jordan Whitehead, pectoral, and Mike Edwards, hamstring strain, the Bucks' defense orchestrated a second-half shutout. Cornerback Jamal Dean, who recorded an interception, had a particularly strong day, surrendering just 2 catches on 6 targets. Levante David recorded 1.5 sacks, as did Logan Hall. Should the Chargers be concerned about their defense? Sunday was by far the worst game of the season for this defense and coordinator Jesse Minter. Quarterback Baker Mayfield, 288 passing yards for touchdowns. Wide receiver Mike Evans, 9 catches, 159 yards, 2 touchdowns, and running back Bucky Irving, 15 attempts, 117 yards, got whatever they wanted on the NFL's best scoring defense. 40 points is the most the Chargers have allowed since Week 15 of last season. It was a shockingly bad performance for this defense that other teams could capitalize on down the stretch by mimicking the Bucks' game plan. Most surprising performance, quarterback Justin Herbert. It was an uncharacteristically poor game from Herbert, who came into Sunday nursing a left ankle sprain. He held the football too long in some cases, which resulted in sacks and missed open receivers. His interception in the third quarter snapped his streak of 357 straight pass attempts without a pick, the 5th longest streak in NFL history. Biggest hole in the game plan, finding ways to sustain a second-half offense. The Chargers were shut out in the second half for the 3rd time this season, tied for the most in the NFL. They must adjust the patterns in their second-half play calling to help them down the stretch, especially if they want to avoid an early exit in the playoffs. Was this performance enough to put the drama to bed? Yep, that should do the trick. The consternation coming out of the locker room last week was originally about a slumping passing game, but Jalen Hurts, 25 of 32 for 290 yards, returned to attack mode after several weeks of leaning conservative. A.J. Brown had more receiving yards in the first quarter, 48, than he had all of last week against the Panthers, 43. Most importantly, the Eagles picked up their 10th consecutive win, a new franchise record, and remain in the hunt for the number 1 seed in the NFC as the Lions lost to the Bills on Sunday. Most surprising performance, running back Kenneth Gainwell. Saquon Barkley saw limited action in the first half after a brief trip to the medical tent. Gainwell was sprinkled in more than normal in relief of the MVP candidate and ran for a 14-yard gain on 3rd and 9 late in the third quarter. That set up a Hurts touchdown, which gave the Eagles a 2-score lead. Eye-popping stat. Hurts went 12 of 13 in the first half, which was good for 92% completion percentage. That is his highest in any half in his career. It was just the kind of tension-relieving start the Eagles needed against their in-state rival. Can the Steelers bounce back after a deflating loss? Despite losing in Philadelphia, the Steelers clinched a playoff berth thanks to losses by the Colts and Dolphins. But their momentum going into games against the Ravens and Chiefs halted Sunday. After 2 weeks of complimentary football, neither the offense nor defense had any answers. To add insult to injury, TJ Watt, who had 2 sacks and a forced fumble, exited early because of an apparent left lower leg injury. With their postseason passport stamped, the Steelers are playing for seeding and to right the ship before the playoffs so they can avoid another first-round exit. The next 2 games will go a long way to dictating both. What we learn about the QB on Sunday, Russell Wilson, and the offense needs wide receiver George Pickens. After scoring 27 points in their first game without Pickens, the Steelers' offense scored just 13 points, managed 163 yards, and lost the time of possession by nearly 20 minutes. The 163 yards is their fewest in a game since Week 2 of 2010, per ESPN research. Biggest hole in the game plan, pass defense. The Steelers said all week they weren't worried the Eagles would shift their offensive strategy to a more pass-heavy system. But Philly came out throwing, including on 3 of its first 4 plays, and Pittsburgh didn't have a solution to covering Devonta Smith or A.J. Brown. The receivers combined for 19 catches, 219 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Can the Cardinals win out? On paper, it looks like the Cardinals' biggest obstacle to finishing the season undefeated will be the Rams, who are on a hot streak. Arizona showed Sunday that it can still put up points after dropping 30 on the Patriots. If the Cardinals play like that against the Panthers next week, they should win. But a victory in Week 17 against Los Angeles will depend on which Cardinals team shows up. The season finale against the 6-8 49ers should be another win as long as Arizona is productive on offense and dominant on defense. Most surprising performance. Welcome to the offense, Greg Dortch. The wide receiver had his best game of the season, turning 3 receptions into a season-high 60 yards. The highlight of Dortch's game was a 39-yard catch-and-run that showcased his speed and maneuverability against the poor Patriots defense. Early prediction for next week. The Cardinals started going to rookie wide receiver Marvin Harrison Jr. early and often Sunday, which will continue next week in Carolina. He had 2 catches for 32 yards, though he missed 2 touchdown catches in the end zone. They'll continue to feed him in the first half of another must-win game. Will the 3-11 Patriots win another game? Highly unlikely. The Patriots entered Week 15 with the second toughest remaining schedule in the NFL, according to ESPN research, and they now visit the Bills before home games against the Chargers and Buffalo. Per ESPN research, the Patriots have a 16.8% chance to win at Buffalo, a 32.2% chance against the Chargers, and then a 21% chance in the finale. Visiting the Cardinals was the Patriots' best chance, and they were coming off their bye, but it was an uninspiring performance, especially on defense. Biggest hole in the game plan, short yardage running. The Patriots were stopped on 3rd and 1 and 4th, and 1 from the Cardinals 4-yard line in the third quarter, which was critical because a score would have sliced the lead to 16-10. A good running football team can gain yardage even when the opposition knows what's coming, but the Patriots blocking couldn't do anything for Antonio Gibson and Ramondre Stevenson on those 2 key plays. What we learned about the QB on Sunday. Drake may became just the second quarterback in the NFL to go 10 for 10 or better in a first half this season. The Lions' Jared Goff has done it 3 times. But May did so on mostly short passes. His 3-yard shovel pass to Demario Douglas was the most dazzling. May was a silver lining on a frustrating day. Can the Texans fix their inconsistent run game as they push toward the playoffs? The rushing attack has been boom or bust for the Texans since Week 9. Running back Joe Mixon either finishes with over 100 rushing yards twice or finishes under 50 yards 3 times. Sunday was a bust, as he finished with 23 yards. They can clinch a playoff spot if the Colts lose, though they'll need consistency from Mixon to make a run in the postseason. They'll need the offensive line to pave better running lanes for Mixon to reach his full potential. Most surprising performance. When rookie safety Kalen Bullock was targeted, quarterback Tua Tagovailoa had a passer rating of 19. The number was affected by Bullock's interception at the end of the first half, which stopped the Dolphins' drive at Houston's 39-yard line. Describe the game in 2 words: forcing turnovers. That is what propelled the Texans to the win, and cornerback Derek Stingley Jr.'s second interception was the final dagger. The offense had a season-low 190 yards, and most of Houston's points came off turnovers. Without those takeaways, the Texans might have lost. How does this result impact Miami's playoff chances? It certainly doesn't help. At best, the Dolphins can finish with a 9-8 record, and they still need to clear both the Broncos and Colts. Independent of any other result, their playoff chances fell to 4% with Sunday's loss to Houston, per ESPN Analytics. And while they're not mathematically eliminated, they would be with another loss next week to the 49ers. Describe the game in 2 words: no separation. The Texans' defense blitzed on just 20% of Miami's pass plays, relying on the secondary to remain sticky in coverage. As a result, both Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, who left the game with a knee injury, averaged less than 2.0 yards of separation per route run. Tagovailoa threw multiple interceptions for the first time since Week 2. Eye-popping stat. The Dolphins generated negative 48 rushing yards over expectation against Houston, according to NFL Next Gen stats. Their poor run game has been a massive surprise. Devon Achane averaged just 3.4 yards per carry. Miami hasn't eclipsed 100 rushing yards since Week 9, and its 52 rushing yard Sunday push had dropped to 6 games. Why was this such a sloppy performance from Washington? It doesn't help that Washington lost center Tyler Biadasz, illness before the game, and tight end Zach Ertz, concussion in the first half. But the Commanders have been committing too many penalties of late. They had 9 Sunday and have had 28 in the last 3 games combined. Those penalties extended drives for New Orleans and nullified one big game by Washington. The Commanders hold the 7th and final playoff spot, but they can't afford to play this way and expect to clinch. The game should not have come down to a final drive. What we learned about the QB on Sunday: Jaden Daniels showed all that he could do, completing 25 of 31 passes for 226 yards and 2 touchdowns. He extended one play for 8.04 seconds. He also ran 11 times for 66 yards. However, he was sacked a season-high 7 times, sometimes because he held the ball long or ran into trouble. Daniels and wide receiver Terry McLaurin had multiple chances for long touchdown passes, but couldn't connect. Describe the game in 2 words: as expected. New Orleans was missing most of its key offensive starters, including quarterback Derek Carr and its top 2 receivers. The Commanders won not because they played great, but because they played well enough when it mattered and held the ball for more than 40 minutes. Do the Saints stick with Spencer Rattler at quarterback moving forward? The Saints didn't take long to switch from Jake Haener to Rattler after Haener struggled to lead the offense in the first half Sunday. Saints interim coach Darren Rizzi said Haener and Rattler were in a competition to see who would start in place of injured starter Derek Carr, but Rattler clearly outplayed Haener in the second half against Washington. The Saints likely will stick with the hot hand while Carr is out. Early prediction for next week: the offense will sputter again. The unit struggled badly at home without Carr, and while the offense showed more life after switching to Rattler, a night game at Green Bay with running back Alvin Kamara potentially dealing with a groin injury could be their biggest challenge of the season. What we learned about the QB on Sunday: the Saints struggled to move the ball at all with Haener, but they looked like a different team once Rattler came in. Rattler gave the Saints a chance to win, leading 3 scoring drives, including a touchdown with no time remaining. The Saints didn't get the 2-point conversion, but Rattler showed his potential. Is Joe Burrow playing himself into the MVP race? It's hard to argue against that. Burrow had another big performance and threw his 36th touchdown pass of the season, which broke his own franchise record with 3 games still remaining. Entering this week, Burrow was second in the league with a 74.1 QBR. He also led the NFL in passing yards, 3,706, and passing touchdowns, 33. Despite a few turnovers, his playmaking was on full display. Early prediction for next week: expect to see the youth movement continue at defensive end. Sam Hubbard, who had already seen a reduction in snaps coming into Sunday, was ruled out with a right knee injury. No matter the severity of Hubbard's injury, it makes sense for the Bengals to continue to evaluate the young edge rushers on the roster: Miles Murphy, Joseph Osai, Cedric Johnson. At Popping Stat, Burrow had 9.01 seconds to throw his 6-yard touchdown pass to Chase Brown in the first quarter. Burrow bought that time by evading 2 defenders before he located Brown in the end zone. According to ESPN research, it was the longest time to throw on a touchdown this season that wasn't on the final play of regulation. Who should start at QB for the rest of the season? Titans coach Brian Callahan has a lot to think about after starter Will Levis was intercepted 3 times, including one that was returned 40 yards for a touchdown. It was Levis' 6th pick six this season, the most by a quarterback all year. He showed subtle improvement over the past 3 weeks, but regressed severely. With 3 games left, it wouldn't be surprising for Callahan to go with veteran backup Mason Rudolph the rest of the way. The future of the position might be addressed with a high draft pick. Biggest hole in the game plan: the Titans couldn't close the deal on Burrow, who helped the Bengals convert 10 of 13 third down opportunities. Both of Burrow's third down touchdown passes came under pressure, as the Titans failed to get to him each time. Eye-popping stat: this was the first game with at least 10 combined turnovers and 20 combined accepted penalties since the Bears and Vikings in Week 13 of 2006. 10 turnovers, 21 combined accepted penalties. It was sloppy for both teams, though the Bengals came out on top because of their advantage at quarterback. What took so long for Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams to return to old times? Rodgers and Adams were electric, conjuring up memories of their glory days in Green Bay. After getting shut out in the first half, Adams finished with 9 catches for 198 yards and 2 touchdowns, including a 71-yard score. Rodgers passed for 289 yards and 3 touchdowns as the Jets finally pulled out a game in the fourth quarter. This is what the Jets had in mind when they traded for Adams in October. Unfortunately, it took too long because the season was toast weeks ago. What we learn about the QB on Sunday. Rodgers still has wheels. The 41-year-old rushed for a team-high 45 yards, which is the most by a quarterback in his 40s since Doug Flutie, 2003. Rodgers wasn't moving too well early in the season due to knee, hamstring, and ankle injuries, but he has been healthy for the past 3 games, and it shows. The downside, you never want your aging quarterback to lead the team in rushing. Describe the game in 2 words. Damn lucky. Interim coach Jeff Ulbrich was guilty of awful clock management late in the game, scoring too early and giving the Jaguars a chance to tie the game. Cornerback Sauce Gardner bailed out Ulbrich with a game-clinching interception, which was his first in 37 games. Should the secondary be the Jaguars' #1 priority in the offseason? Even if there is a new staff, Coach Doug Peterson's job security remains uncertain. The back end of the defense has to be at the top of the list. This is the second time the Jaguars blew a fourth-quarter lead by allowing deep, quick passes. This time it was a 71-yard touchdown from Rodgers to Adams and another long catch by Adams to set up the Jets' winning touchdown. Jaguars safety Andre Sisco is unlikely to be back, and safety Antonio Johnson has struggled. They need another cornerback to complement Tyson Campbell, too. What we learn about the QB on Sunday. Mac Jones is more comfortable. In his 4th start, the Jaguars put up 25 points, which is more than they put up in Jones' first 3 starts combined, 23. He did make 2 mistakes. Interceptions on deep balls, including one with 37 seconds left, but his improved comfort helped the Jaguars' offense surpass 400 yards for the second time this season. Most surprising performance, the Jaguars' run game. It had been stagnant since they returned from London in mid-October, averaging 69.3 yards per game over the past 6 games. But the Jaguars put up 136 against the Jets. Running back Travis Etienne Jr., who had 4 carries last week, finished with 65 yards, his most since week 3. Can the Chiefs count on their defense again? The Chiefs did a nice job taking advantage of Jameis Winston and the Browns by forcing 5 defensive turnovers, with another turnover on special teams. But it's premature to claim their defense is back to last year's level, considering the quality of the opposition. Bigger challenges await the next couple of weeks in the Texans and Steelers, and with questions around Patrick Mahomes' ankle. He left the game in the 4th quarter with an injury and was visibly limping off the field after the game. Describe the game in 2 words. Strong rush. The Chiefs had one of their better games in getting after the opposing quarterback. They had 5 sacks of Winston, but that didn't tell the whole story. They were consistent with pressure on the Browns' quarterback, even when they weren't blitzing. This was reason for encouragement since this pass rush is among the least productive in the league. Most surprising performance. Harrison Butker had made all 72 of his career field goal attempts of less than 30 yards until he missed a 29-yard try late in the first half. The miss didn't matter in the long haul, but it was a notable blemish in the kicker's return to the lineup from left knee surgery. Will the Browns make a quarterback change? Jameis Winston breathed life into Cleveland's offense at times, but he was benched in the 4th quarter amid his 4th multi-interception game in 7 starts. Dorian Thompson-Robinson is unproven, though Cleveland doesn't have much to lose in evaluating the 2023 5th-round pick. The team is already eliminated from playoff contention. Most surprising performance, running back Jerome Ford recorded 104 scrimmage yards, including a 62-yard touchdown run in the 3rd quarter. It marked Ford's first 100-yard game this season, and his first since Week 7 of the 2023 season. Eye-popping stat. The Browns' defense pressured quarterback Patrick Mahomes 21 times before he left late in the 4th quarter because of an ankle injury. It was tied for the most pressures Mahomes has faced in a game this season. What did the Ravens prove against the struggling Giants? The Ravens insisted they wouldn't overlook the last-place Giants, and they backed that up by not playing down to an opponent like earlier this season. After surprising losses to the Raiders and Browns, the Ravens dominated New York. Quarterback Lamar Jackson tied a career high with 5 touchdown passes, and the defense tied a season low in yards allowed, 236. Now Baltimore has to prove it can beat Pittsburgh on Saturday. The Ravens have lost 8 of their past 9 games to their biggest rival. The Steelers can clinch the AFC North title with a win. What we learned about the QB on Sunday. Don't count out Jackson from repeating as MVP. Over the past 3 weeks, Jackson has gone from the betting favorite to win MVP, to 3rd behind the Bills' Josh Allen and the Eagles' Saquon Barkley. But Jackson put together a spectacular performance with more touchdown passes, 5, than incompletions, 4. It was his 6th career game with 5 touchdown passes, which is tied for 4th most in NFL history. Most surprising performance, wide receiver Rashad Bateman. The 2021 first round pick continued his breakout season with the first multiple touchdown game of his 4-year career, catching touchdown passes of 49 and 20 yards. Bateman now has 6 touchdown catches in 14 games after totaling 4 in his first 3 seasons, 34 games. What does this loss mean for the Giants? They have now lost 9 straight games and are on the verge of becoming the first team ever to go 0-9 at home after being dominated by the Ravens. They'll be underdogs in the final 3 weeks at Atlanta versus Indianapolis and at Philadelphia. 12 straight losses to end the season is not out of the question. This latest defeat does keep the Giants in pole position for the number 1 pick. They came into Sunday with a 41% chance at the top pick. It jumped to 48% with the loss. Describe the game in 2 words: completely overmatched. The disparity in talent gave the Giants no chance to win. They had no answer for Jackson or the Ravens' offense. They had no chance to move the ball consistently, whether it was Tommy DeVito or Tim Boyle at quarterback. The Giants looked every bit a 2-12 team and tied a franchise record with their 9th straight loss. What we learned about the QB on Sunday: the Giants can't keep anyone healthy after DeVito left late in the first half with a concussion. Ever since benching Daniel Jones, DeVito was injured in each of his 2 starts. Drew Lock also lasted just 2 starts after injuring his heel last week. Boyle finished Sunday's game and went 12 of 24 for 123 yards, an interception, and the Giants' first passing touchdown in 5 games. Did the Cowboys show some mental toughness? Quick answer: yes. It might not mean anything at the end of the season, and it may cost them draft positioning, but players and coaches want and need to win games. Coming off their deflating loss to the Bengals on Monday, the Cowboys responded on a short week. With the exception of one play, the defense smothered quarterback Bryce Young. The offense was efficient with another reconfigured offensive line, and quarterback Cooper Rush had the first 3 touchdown game of his career. At 6-8, the Cowboys still have a chance to make the playoffs, even if it's faint. What we learned about the QB on Sunday: Rush shouldn't run many zone reads. It led to his 4th lost fumble of the season. But he was able to rebound with an efficient performance, including 3 touchdown throws under duress, the most by a Dallas quarterback since Dak Prescott in 2021, Week 17 versus Arizona. Early prediction for next week: running back Rico Dowdle, who finished with 149 yards on 25 carries, will have his 4th straight 100-yard outing when the Cowboys take on the Buccaneers. It will be tough against a Tampa Bay defense that is allowing 115.2 yards per game on the ground. The last Cowboys running back to have 4 straight 100-yard rushing games was Ezekiel Elliott, 2016. Will Coach Dave Canales turn back to Andy Dalton after Bryce Young's 4-turnover game? Canales insists it's a weekly decision on Young, who set a career-high 4 turnovers, 2 interceptions, 2 lost fumbles. He was also sacked 6 times. Carolina might want to get another look at Dalton, who was the starter before a thumb injury from a car crash. The turnovers could be the excuse needed to see whether the 37-year-old can be the veteran backup or starter entering next season. Biggest hole in the game plan: defending wide receiver CeeDee Lamb. The Cowboys had 1 premier receiver, and Carolina let him run free, 116 yards. In the first half, he had 8 catches for 105 yards and a touchdown. Much of these splash plays were the result of the Panthers playing zone and not putting top corner J.C. Horn on Lamb exclusively. Describe the game in 2 words: no rush. Dallas had the 3rd worst run defense, 141.9 yards per game, and Carolina's Chuba Hubbard ranked 6th in rushing, 1,011 yards, entering the game. Hubbard got 10 carries for 32 yards, which opened up Dallas' pass rush, resulting in Young being sacked 4 times in the 3rd quarter after having none in the first half. With 3 games left, can the Rams make a playoff run? They sure look like a playoff team. ESPN Analytics gives the Rams a 52% chance to make the playoffs and 49% chance to win the division entering the weekend. After the game, Coach Sean McVay said it was really cool that the Rams have found a bunch of different ways to be able to win football games. After winning 44-42 in Week 14, the Rams beat San Francisco by just 6 points. Earlier in the week, receiver Puka Nacua said Los Angeles is playing close to its best football of the season. That has shown up during the Rams' 3-game winning streak, as they've managed to climb back out of a 1-4 hole to sit just a half game back of first in the NFC West. Describe the game in 2 words: slow start. Against the 49ers, the Rams failed to score in the first quarter for the ninth time this season. According to ESPN research, that is tied with the Bears for the second most such starts in the NFL. After the game, quarterback Matthew Stafford said, early in the game, "I didn't play good enough on third down." Eye-popping stat. For the first time since McVay was hired in 2017, the Rams failed to get a first down on their first four offensive drives, according to ESPN research. A week after scoring a season-high 44 points, Los Angeles finished the game with only 14 first downs. With their playoff hopes all but dead, where do the 49ers go from here? Last week's win against Chicago offered a slight glimmer of hope for the Niners, but that all went out the window Thursday night. Mathematically, there might still be a way for San Francisco to sneak in, but it's the longest of long shots. With 3 games left, the 49ers would be well served to rest star veterans who have been playing through injuries while continuing to assess who needs to stay and who needs to go for them to rebound in 2025. Describe the game in 2 words: punt party. Inclement weather undoubtedly played a part, but the Niners and Rams didn't exactly light up the scoreboard. They combined for 7 punts in the first quarter alone, tied for most punts in a quarter this season, and 13 for the game. A game that looked poised to be a shootout after the Rams and Niners combined to score 82 points last week turned into a rock fight with a total of 18 points and no touchdowns. Most surprising performance: linebacker Devondre Campbell. Maybe this is more of a surprising non-performance, but either way, it was a shock to the Niners when Campbell declined to enter the game in the third quarter after injuries to other linebackers. Campbell walked to the locker room in the fourth quarter, leaving teammates at a loss for why he would go to the trouble of putting on a uniform and taking up a roster spot without playing.